Hello and good morning, YouTube and all survivors of non-consensual human experimentation, especially human experimentation being done with remote neuroweapon systems and directed energy weapon systems. Star date, it's actually like 11:10 a.m. Central Time, May the 6th, 2019. I wanted to start the video, and I kind of want to go through this information pretty fast, guys, because I have a lot to go through. I'm probably going to have to do it in two parts because I really want to read the article. It's like a very, very important article from actually, well, I'll read it to y'all, but the article is on the weaponization of neurotechnology, and it's by, let me just show y'all real quick. I'm going to get to it. But it's called, the article is called Weaponizing Neurotechnology, International Humanitarian Law and Loss of Language. This is from the Oxford Academic, and it's by the London Review of International Law. So I think it's a very important article, and it also goes to my proof that anything that's being done in the world, if it's really being done, if it's really true, a lot of people are going to be writing about it. A lot of people are going to be talking about it. I feel like as targeted individuals and other people who aren't directly targeted, there's this, I guess I'm gonna risk the word spell, not magic, but there's a social conditioning spell that this is all covered up and that not many people are talking about it, and there's not that much information out there. There's hella information out there about this, and we've just gotta, the mainstream, the 7 o'clock mainstream news is not going to be telling people about this because they're within the system, there are controls so that things that are sensitive national security wise, or the military industrial complex doesn't want people to know about, they're going to be covered up on a mass scale, you know, because of controls within the system. However, we do get things like the Cuban embassy attacks and the China consulate attacks. Those things come out by miracles. You know, I see them as miracles because this information, they are trying to cover up this information. When I say them, I mean higher up agencies such as the DoD, you know, intelligence agencies, and the contractors, subcontractors, a pyramid of contractors and subcontractors working with universities and hospitals that get DoD, Department of Defense contracts to do this kind of weapons research and advancement. Before I get started though, guys, I just wanted to go over, I wanted to let y'all know that Alice in Ireland, I'm not sure who's running American Inkjet. I think it may be Robert Duncan's channel, or it may just be a channel that Allison created. I'm not sure, but it seems like it was created just for this MIT presentation, the virtual presentation. And this is you can go to American Inkjet, and it's called Alice in Ireland on Neuroweapons, Targeted Individuals, Innocent American Civilians, V2K. It's her testimonial that she actually, that I guess she played, at the virtual presentation, she played it for all the people who came at MIT to see information about this. It's a very, very important testimonial. Alice in Ireland is a very intelligent, very strong woman, and she sticks to the facts. She sticks to what she knows, and sticks to, you know, getting awareness out about, you know, what she can prove about the situation. And you know, kind of, she doesn't really go into the guessing game of exactly things that she's not certain of in this. So go check that out there, guys. American Inkjet, because we want to give this views. I was going to just show the entire thing, just show it on my channel to get more eyeballs on it, but I think that if I just showed it at the beginning of the video, you guys can go there and check it out, give it a thumbs up, you know, subscribe to the channel. Okay, then second thing is I wanted to show y'all, I just bought these EMF safety eyeglasses from Less EMF. They're working very well, especially if you're a targeted individual that actually gets external hits in the eyes. This would be perfect for you. I don't get external hits in the eyes much now. I used to. My attackers used to hit me a lot with external microwaves in the eyes, But I do feel like if you're getting remote neural manipulation, you got electromagnetic fields are being created around your head that are actually tapping into the vestibular system. Now, what I mean when I say vestibular system is just the nerves in the areas of the brain that that your senses are connected to. So it's like, I think that our attackers have some like that article I read about ultrasound being used in conjunction with MRIs around the head. I think there's things like that are being used on us to get signals from and to the brain. Now there's different protocols and things like that, but this would help if your attackers and my attackers are tapping into the nerves in my eyes and my ears. So these glasses help to kind of block that field whenever they're doing it. It's been really good. It's also kind of an ironic miracle. I feel a lot better, not sleeping in my Faraday bunker. But I'm still getting, I still had a sore leg when I woke up this morning. I had a headache, and like where there's like a huge bump on the back of my head that was done by my attackers, and it's where I was wearing the glasses, these EMF safety eyeglasses. They wanted me to take them off, so my attackers made it very uncomfortable. And, if you have pressure somewhere on your body, they can do remote neural manipulation and things to make that area sore. Like say I'm laying on my hip, they have methods to create a soreness on that hip where if you pull weight off of it, it does help, but they can still do it. So they were doing that with these glasses, trying to get me to take them off. But I did wear them all night, and they're helping. So I just wanted to show you all that. They're only $18.95, so it's pretty cheap for things that we can use for defense. Then third thing right up front is I'm always saying integrated weapon systems now. So I wanted to explain to y'all exactly what I meant. Some of you may know what I mean, but I wanted to read this Wikipedia article on weapon systems as pertaining to the military to just let y'all know in a more definitive way what I'm talking about when I say our attackers are using integrated remote weapon systems. Hold on, guys. And it's a really long article from the London Review of International Law, but I want to go through and read it. So if some of you guys just want to listen to it, I'm also going to put the link in the description. But I really want to be putting out this concrete information. The London Review of International Law is talking about neuroweapons and saying that nobody is putting out laws to protect people from it, and the use of it is just like it's just being used, and nobody is has committees or anything to like actually put the kibosh on it. Now laws have been made in California and Michigan about electronic attacks, about directed energy weapons, but it seems to be that those people still operate in California attacking targeted individuals, and people still work in Michigan, doing this. So it's like those laws haven't been, I haven't seen that they've been that helpful. Maybe they've been more helpful than I think, but so I'm going to put that in two parts. But I just really want to read through it because it's just like the Oxford Review. I think I'm not saying it's like not the London Review, but I'll get to that. Let me read this first. I'm gonna drink some energy drink. I hope all you guys are doing well. I hope you're relatively comfortable or finding ways to be relatively comfortable. I'm talking to a lot of targeted individuals who are just going through so much pain, and like their brain and their nervous system is being manipulated so badly. Another thing is I'm getting that electromagnetic transcranial stimulation device, but I have to actually get some. I have to pay an extra $20 to actually get a prescription for it from the place that I'm getting it from. So I am getting that, but it's a little bit more involved than I thought it would be. So let me read this, guys, real quick. So weapon system. This article is about naming of U.S. military programs. For general topic of weapon systems and for other U.S. designations, see weapon. For United States military aircraft designation system, see Joint Electronics Type Designation System. Maybe I'm going to make myself smaller here. There we go. That's good. Right there. So, weapon system was United States Armed Forces military designation scheme for experimental weapons, e.g. WS-220, before they received an official name. Example, under a military aircraft designation system. The new designator reflected the increasing complexity of weapons that required separate development of auxiliary systems or components. So it's like, this is how I hypothesize, and where my research has led me is that I know that some people, some targeted individuals, their attacks could be 95% automated, where you don't have like shift workers and human operators. I think a lot of targeted individuals do have shift workers and operators, so that the shift workers, human operators, are teaching the automated systems, are teaching the AI how to decide things about attacks and stuff like that, while the automated systems are teaching the human operators certain things, and then the human operators can inject manually certain things or do brain to machine to brain interfaces. So I get, this is the only example that I can really think of right now, but Brian too talks about like a bidirectional stream of energy 24 hours a day that's hooked up to a supercomputer. I think that's right. So with this integrated weapons platform, it would be connected. It would be connected to that supercomputer or system that actually has that stream coming like to our head, maybe hitting nanotechnology past the past the blood-brain barrier, or creating a field and doing directed electromagnetic hits to read from the brain or send signals to the brain, or both of those. Now, we could be doing that 24 hours a day with a stream of energy connected to that weapons platform, but then the manual operators could also, with that integrated weapons platform, hit, like, because my attackers will hit my electronic cigarette and heat it up, so I actually have to put it down. Or the more deadly form of that, external hits to the throat, or external hits to the head, or external hits to the groin. Like, so on their integrated weapon systems, they could be hitting me with, hitting us with ground radar or over the horizon radar, right? But then that 24, like, and I'm not sure that the 24-hour day bidirectional stream of energy could be coming from over the horizon radar, but there could also be a 24/7-hour-day signal going to implants that we have in us also. So that's what I mean, and I hope I wasn't confusing on that, because it's still like, I don't know exactly how that works, but integrated weapon systems where they're using an integrated form of hitting us, and that's in the weapon systems, but then also have the 24-hour-day, 7-day-a-week stream, bidirectional stream of energy going to our head using our unique brainwave signature, or a constant signal going to an implant in your body, and use different things. So I think most of y'all know what I'm saying, but I think it's important. That's the direction that I think that we're going in, is that they can do many things, but it's like your team of people or your shift workers are sitting at a remote platform, and it's integrated weapon systems where they can use many things. So let me just read it one more time. The new designator reflected the increasing complexity of weapons that required separate development of auxiliary systems or components. So that's kind of what we're looking with what our attackers are using to experiment on us, to torture us, to advance the weapons, to practice, the human operators teaching the automated systems or AI how to make decisions better, and then the AI teaching the human operators to be more efficient and things like that, and then many other things. But I just wanted to kind of read through this. I don't think I'm going to read the rest of it because I just wanted to read that one part. I'm going to go ahead and move over to the article, guys. You know, I'm searching through right now. What I was going to do today is I was going to call, you know, I was going to just turn on the camera, the web camera, and there's a organization that's against non-consensual human experimentation that I put on one of my videos, and I was just going to put them up on the page and then call them and tell them what was happening to me, tell them what was happening to us, see what they're doing about it if they knew about it. But I cannot find that organization, so I'm going to have to go back in videos, and I'm going to actually have to kind of search for that organization. Then I'm going to do a video just calling them, you know, just to show y'all what I say and stuff like that, so a bunch of us can call different organizations, which targeted individuals have already been doing, you know, for a long time. We're calling the FBI, you know, we're calling the human rights organizations, not the ASPCA. The ASPCA, right? No, it's an animal rights organization. Oh, it's the obvious one. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The big obvious one for human rights, and I can't believe I can't remember the name. Okay, well let me go on with the article, guys. If I remember it, boy, it's like an obvious name for the biggest human rights organization in America. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But it's embarrassing to forget that. My memory's been a little bit better. I feel like I have more energy, like mental energy, but still getting targeted, you know. It's kind of a little ironic miracle because it seems like things were getting like 10 to 15 times worse in the Faraday bunker without me knowing that something was the cause of that with the Faraday bunker. And I'm kind of, like I've said on other videos, it's like 10 times better, but I'm still getting targeted. So I'm trying to enjoy the little miracle, the ironic miracle of me kind of messing up and it getting worse. And now it's a little bit better. I'm kind of coming back to myself a little bit. God works in mysterious ways, you know. So this is from the Oxford Academic London Review of International Law. The article is called Weaponizing Neurotechnology, International Humanitarian Law and the Loss of Language, by the London Review of International Law, Volume 2, Issue 2, September 2014. Pages 201 to 231, published on September 4th, 2014 by Gregor Knoll. So, abstract. In recent years, research on military applications of neuroscience has grown in sophistication, raising the question as to whether states using weapon systems that draw on neuroscience are capable of applying international humanitarian law to that use. And I think that they are capable, but because of who is using them, because it's a hidden system like MK Ultra, you know, it's a more technologically advanced form of MK Ultra. MK Ultra ended. Maybe MK Ultra still goes on today, but then these are projects of something different that came off the heels, that came off of the work that MK Ultra did. With remote neuro weapons technology, and many other things such as toxins and things like that being tested on targeted individuals, and many other things, PSYOP protocols and things like that. I argue that neuroweapons largely eliminate the role of language in targeting, render unstable the distinction between superior and subordinate, and ultimately disrupt the premise of responsibility under IHL, so that's International Humanitarian Law. I conclude that it is impossible to assess whether future uses of these weapons will be lawful under international humanitarian law. That's what I mean. A lot of targeted individuals in a lot of the world are working towards to bring these weapons out into the light. The agencies that are manufacturing them and controlling them and using them to experiment and torture on citizens, or trying to keep them in the dark and buy time so that then they don't have to follow any rules, because they're trying to get in as much experimentation, as much torture, as much false flagging of innocent citizens as they can. Okay, so Leaf and Neuroscience. Leaf and Neuroscience. I shall start this account with Leaf, a 73-year-old farmer from the municipality of Markaryd in southern Sweden. In the winter of 2012, I spent a week with him at Lund University Hospital, where we both successfully underwent surgery. 6 days in a 4-bed ward in a large department on the 11th floor of the western wing of the hospital's central building, and a 48-hour cycle in the operation theater and intensive care unit. Leaf suffers from Parkinson's disease. I think suffers is more than a figure of speech here. When he was off his usual medication in conjunction with his surgery, I could perceive quite literally how the return of Parkinson's tremor imposed suffering of unmitigated violence on him. On the Monday of that week, the surgical team implanted 2 probes, a couple of centimeters long, in Leaf's brain, and connected them with subcutaneous wiring to a pulse generator in Leaf's chest. Like a pacemaker, this pulse generator is designed to emit small currents, with the important difference that it intervenes in the working of the brain rather than the heart. Now, that would make a lot of sense. A lot of targeted individuals are talking about remote neural manipulation, which affects the heart, which affects other organs. So this is something that has trickled out in the medical community. The medical community uses openly devices that actually control organs by signals to the brain. So that can kind of help it to make sense for people who are not directly targeted, or targets who don't really understand, some of the things that remote neural manipulation can do. The surgical team's intervention took 8 hours, leaving Leaf appreciably weakened when I saw him entering the intensive care unit. On Wednesday, upon our return to our 4-bed ward, a specialized nurse came to see Leaf and turned on the pulse generator with a small remote control. After rudimentary programming of the strength and frequency of the electrical pulses, both left the room, Leaf shuffling forward with his wheeled walker, supported by the nurse who had linked her right arm into his. Hold on, guys. I had dozed off for perhaps 10 minutes when an agile, wiry man rushed into the room, stopped at an empty bed, and described a joyful and pointless curve in the air with his right leg. Lazarus transformed. No walker, no nurse, nothing but motion. Now the nurse entered the room too. "Leaf," she said, breathing audibly, "I am not quite content with your left turns." I was, of course, deeply impressed. Despite the fact that Leaf's left turns required small adjustments on the remote control, soon to be handed over to him, so that he could steer the alter ego of his brain's neuronal firings, his transformation was dramatic. This lifted the spirits of all occupants of our 4-bed ward. If they could fix Leaf, they could surely fix us too. That said, we all knew that the technology used with Leaf, deep brain stimulation, suppresses symptoms rather than curing diseases. In short, the remote control governs the strength and frequency of an electrical current that is sent from the pacemaker to the probes in Leaf's head. The probes emit the current in a particular area of his brain, and thus counteract those neuronal signals which cause the tremor otherwise incapacitating Leaf. The medical, or rather biological, reasons why this method works are not fully understood. Still, it works. But in the coming days it emerged that Leaf's improvement was a trade-off. Whilst his movements were articulate, his speech was less so. It was increasingly hard to follow his brief comments during lunch conversations. A fellow patient well versed in the literature of DBS informed me that this was normal, and that the remote control could be used to temporarily turn off the system before engaging in conversation. This allowed Leaf to speak more clearly, but came at a price of the re-emergence of the tremor. Why is it that motor control is opposed to the articulation of language? If only by a chance of sorts, the mind-body problem appeared to manifest itself here in the form of the question as to how mental states relate to physical states. After a few further days at home, excuse me guys, I happened to read an article in The Guardian which reported on military researchers' interest in neuroscience as a means of augmenting the performance of one's own soldiers, or of degrading that of the enemy. I was taken aback by the examples given. Weak currents introduced into the brain by a mesh of electrodes in order to improve the ability of the subject to detect improvised explosive devices, or on a more intrusive level, the prospective integration of the human brain into a weapons system. In this, I recognized the same class of electrochemical technology from which Leaf had benefited, and it surprised me that I had not even thought about ethically inverse applications of this type of empirical knowledge back at the hospital. What I experienced, in contrast to the enthusiasm triggered by Leaf's liberation from his walker, was an anxiety as to the problem of dual use. Delivering a technology serving life is potentially bought at the price of delivering a technology serving death. Another trade-off. So dual use means it's like this technology could be used to help people. Like if somebody loses a limb, their brain can tell the limb to move, and it can be connected neuronally to the brain. These signals can go from the arm to the brain. That's a good use, right? That's a good use to give somebody the use of a limb that they've lost, and the feeling of that limb back. And that's just one of the examples of good uses of this technology. The horrifying use are what targeted individuals experience of being tortured, non-consensually controlled and manipulated, where we didn't say that it was okay. We were just picked for some reason. There are lots of different reasons. I know there are reasons. In my case, it was very it wasn't anything about me. It was about my situation. I was a sick 12-year-old boy who had to get certain surgeries at a hospital with connections to contractors and subcontractors that the DoD tied in very close with. So it was just convenience with me, I think. I'm not sure, there may be more complicated algorithms that the people up at the top are working with. The lie is different at every level of why they're doing this. At the top, they could be using an algorithm to actually pick out people and profile people in society who are going to be who are going to be trouble for them, who are going to be trouble for tyranny or the control. I don't think that the top of the pyramid would call it tyranny. It's just the way that they want to do things, and wiping out people, genociding them, and controlling the rest, to do whatever, many things that are going on in society. But let me keep reading, guys. In the years that have passed since, I have attempted to grasp the significance of neurotechnology for the development of weapons systems. In parallel, I have tried to understand how a question could be articulated that would capture the consequences of what I will call neuroweapons for international humanitarian law. This question, formulated below and underlying the remainder of the text, is whether states are capable of applying international humanitarian law when using weapon systems drawing on neuroscience. The article first explains how rapid processing is traded off against consciousness, and why this might be a problem for IHL. Second, it shows that some scholars from law and from other disciplines react rather optimistically to the promises of neuroscience. Third, I try to take that optimism to its extreme by sketching the development of an IHL software that would depend on neurotechnology and be integrated into future weapons systems, automatizing judgments on whether a certain conduct is in conformity with IHL norms or not. I mean, and this guy is writing this, and I think it's good that he's writing this and asking these questions. But as targeted individuals, we know they've gone way past anything with humanitarian law. It's the worst kind of traumatic rape and torture and invasion of the brain, and trying to completely control someone's life and destroy it. Where targeted individuals like me and you guys are concerned, where it's a negative effect on our life. Now, do they have programs where they're augmenting people positively and things like that, and it's only good effects? I don't know. I hypothesize that they are, but those people aren't going to speak out, right? We're going to speak out because it's controlling us and giving us negative effects and permanent damage to our brain, permanent damage to our body, which I hope a lot of it is not permanent. The question still has to be raised. A lot of it feels like the microwaves being directed at our brain, our nervous system. it's science that they are doing damage to our body and our brain. It's simple, just simple science that it's messing up. It's just messing up our cells. It's messing up our DNA. It's messing up our body and our brain. This enables me to ask that what would be lost if we were to use such a neuroscientifically enabled machine? The following section answers this question from a micro perspective, focusing on the cognitive unity of the human being. It draws on the critique of neuroscience as a degenerate form of Cartesianism as formulated within strands of analytical philosophy. The article then tracks the consequences of the loss of language effectuated by neuroweapons, and leads me to consider the work of the German philosopher Martin Heidegger in the concluding section. I suggest that IHL cannot be applied where neuroweapons disintegrate the cognitive unity of man and downgrade the role of language in cognition. However, it is likely that neuroweapons will be advertised as resting on the most objective form of human cognition, or indeed on the nature of man as cast by neuroscience. In order to make up our mind on such claims at the core of international humanitarian law, there is no other way but to explore issues of considerable scientific and philosophical complexity. In introducing them, I suggest they have both deeply practical as well as theoretical importance. What are neuroweapons? Armaments embody fantasies of future conflicts. They also reflect our beliefs about what it means to be a human being in that future. Arms development in general follows a temporal logic of surprise, being first with the latest. My main example of neuroscientific applications in the military domain is very literally about acceleration. In a great number of battlefield situations, the human brain is actually faster than a computer when it comes to perceiving threats. Yet a computer is faster than a human being in calculating countermeasures. Obviously, those militaries that are able to combine the two, human perception and machine calculation, will gain an accumulated temporal advantage over those who do not. As I will illustrate in what follows, gaining time competes with conscious decision-making. Since September 11, 2001, the operating hours of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions flown by the U.S. Air Force have risen by 3,100%, with unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, accounting for most of the increase. As of 2011, the Air Force has to process 1,500 hours of full motion video and 1,500 still images every day, as there are not enough humans available to process the data. Michael Donnelly, the Secretary of the Air Force, described the situation as unsustainable. So the U.S. has made it... Do I have something on my hat? Oh, it's something on the computer screen. Looks like a bird crapped on my hat. Something I have on the computer screen. Okay, where was I? Michael Donnelly, the Secretary of the Air Force, described the situation as unsustainable. Oh my gosh. I still, I'm part way close to tearing down my Faraday bunker. I'm still working on it though. It's going to be nice to spread out my room, but I'm still a little bit, anxious as to how my attackers are going to reconfigure everything that they're doing to me. I'm just going to enjoy the time I have of feeling like it's a little bit, it's decreased a little bit, a good bit to my brain. Like a little bit, I'm getting a little bit more of the, external hits, but my brain is thinking better. Like my mood is better. And the remote neural manipulation is incredible after a while. Like after many years of them tapping into your brain and your nervous system, I mean, they put like very, very, very intricate lines of thought with emotion with me. And they've really practiced over the years of tricking me and finding out how I think and getting better and better at it. Where at the beginning, they would push a thought into my head and I'd be like, that's ridiculous. That's not how I think at all. But finding out how I do think and maybe amplifying that and making it very intricate, we've got to be aware that this does get very intricate, and they try and kind of Trojan horse certain things, and then it's I mean I'm not like, oh, they're so great and everything, but with the automated weapon systems figuring things out and human operators, it's like some of this stuff, well, it's just scary. It's just scary what they're doing to the mind, and what kind of an intricate line of thought that I question, is that me? Because it's pretty reasonable and kind of like what I would think if I was being tortured forever. Like, but they work on that manipulation, and the automated system, I think, is a very, very integral part of that. I mean, intricate lines of thought with emotion, and just working on it all the time. The automated system's working on it all the time. Then the shift workers are putting in their kind of human evil creativity. I've got to put evil in there, evil creativity, to do some very, very just really bad stuff, that we can still fight, and that we can stay aware of. But check your blind spots, guys. That's one thing that, check your blind spots. Things that you don't think that the people attacking you can mess with. Just keep checking your blind spots, is all I'm gonna say. I'll maybe make I'll make a better video about that, because I think that a lot of targeted individuals that are very, very intelligent, their attackers find their blind spots, things that they don't think can ever be manipulated and stuff like that. And I guess that gets pretty complicated. I'll go into that in another video. Okay, so the U.S. has made enormous investments into global intelligence gathering that it cannot exploit due to the lack of manpower. It is recognized, as I will argue below, that machines can only replace some aspects of human cognition, but it is a reasonable expectation that there will be a massive military interest in a neuroscience that promises to make human cognition automatically exploitable. That's very true, and it is happening, and more people are being pulled into experimentation and torture programs every day by specific hospitals, universities, contractors, and subcontractors. A big web of an evolved system. We can say military-industrial complex, but the ways in which these subcontractors and contractors work together with universities and hospitals is like a new way. It's like they've developed new intricate forms of the system, forms of how our system works, even how agencies in the military and corporations work together. These things have evolved, and it hasn't been a nightly news topic of how specific contractors like Lockheed Martin or Boeing or anything work with actual, with the DoD, and work with the CIA and DARPA, and then certain hospitals and universities who do non-consensual implantation. I don't want to get into that. I do want to just say quickly, though, I know a lot of people say that non-consensual implantation through surgery is like an old technology, and they can do it many other ways. I agree, but I think that non-consensual human implantation is still going on, and they've advanced that along with other things, not needing the person to be implanted to target them. I think they're using it as a redundant system. They've never said, oh, that's old technology and we're not going to use that anymore. They keep it going, and they advance that even with the other advancements that they're making. So I know targeted individuals like, oh, they don't even need to implant you anymore. They don't need to, but do they? Yes they do, because it intensifies the targeting, and it can actually do it can just intensify it and make it more powerful in certain parts and clusters of nerves and things like that. So I just want to add that in. I talk really fast because it's a lot of information. One of the things that I'm working on is really chilling out, like, because my attackers get me going, like, in this anxiety, and just being microwaved for so long gives me like this anxiousness, like a physical anxiousness. So I'm really working on pulling back, just breathing, and just but it's kind of just the way that it's rolling. I've really got to work on that, though, to fight it. It is recognized, as I will argue below, that machines can only replace some aspects of human cognition, but it is a reasonable expectation that there will be a massive military interest in a neuroscience that promises to make human cognition automatically exploitable, either helping it or hurting it, which, you know, people who watch my videos, targeted individuals, and me, and the targeted individuals that I know, it's exploiting cognitive abilities negatively. It's trying to damage our cognitive abilities and damage our body. Now, like I said, are there programs that are positive? Of course there are. How many of them are they being done to non-consensual citizens around the world? I hypothesize yes. And when I say hypothesize, I sound like such a nerd. I know it. But it's the best way to describe. It's the best way to describe how we should go about this. You know. Human automatic. Okay, as an expansion of staff matching. Okay, as an expansion of staff matching the expansion of data is so expensive as to be unlikely. Neurotechnology will be strategically important tool as a remedy for the manpower scarcity described by Donnelly. Of course, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, is a major beneficiary of the U.S. President's April 2013 initiative to invest into brain research. The Brain Initiative. When Obama came out and talked about the Brain Initiative. I believe that neuroweapons are the logical sequel to the proliferation of UAVs, and the debate on the autonomy of the latter prepares the ground for the acceptance of neurotechnology in the development of weapon systems. And there is autonomy. How much autonomy? Are some targeted individuals, is it completely autonomous what's happening to them, with maybe somebody coming in once every 2 weeks or something to check on if it's still going and check on it? We've got that question to ask, you know. But there are definitely autonomous systems, and what we would call AI, you know. While currently one operator is needed to pilot a single UAV, developments are taking place that will allow a single operator to pilot a swarm of UAVs in future. And that seems like, okay, I'm not going to go, I may do a follow-up after my part 1 and part 2 reading this and give my thoughts on it, but I just want to read through the article. I may put things in here or there, but I really want to just focus on reading the article and y'all coming and checking out this article. Consequently, there will be a strong case for neuroscientific enhancement of the cognitive capabilities of that operator. Today, all the talk is about drones, but it is already time to start talking about the neurotechnology that will follow in their wake. To be sure, I do think that the discussion on the legal and ethical implications of autonomous weapon systems is valuable, but as Noel Sharkey had pointed out, autonomy in robotics is more related to the term automatic than it is to individual freedom. My sense is that it is less helpful to approach the issue of war technologies through the binary of autonomy and heteronomy than to focus upon the point at which humans and machines meet. Neurotechnological devices offer themselves up as exemplars of how new scientific and technological developments affect the premises underlying the laws of war. And I'm always saying that. We are in a war. It looks a lot different. It's very bizarre, but this is a war. Like, the laws of war are changing. War looks different now. It looks different now. Not coming up, the face of war will change. The face of war has changed. We live in that war. We've been drafted. If you're a targeted individual, you have been drafted in a war. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, but you have. You've been picked for experimentation, where the people on the other end of these weapons and doing this are just, they consider it doing whatever they want, and they don't really consider us to have any power to fight back or do anything that's useful to fight back. You know, they expect people to go off and shoot others and, you know, cause these false flags that then they can capitalize on as well, but they don't expect us to actually figure out how to fight this war, which they're wrong. They're wrong. Me and you guys watching this video know. So no, I don't like, so just know, KNOW, know that I don't like saying, hey, we're in a war, guys, and you've been drafted, but that's the facts. You know, that's the reality here. But let me approach the use of neurotechnology step by step. Putting a computer-aided weapon into the hands of a soldier engaged in, say, urban warfare, is one rudimentary way of combining man and machine. In this initial scenario, the soldier still has to process the information gathered from perception and form out of it what we tend to cast as a conscious decision on the course of action she will be taking. Consider that the soldier perceives a threat in the form of another person on the battlefield. Is that person really a member of an allied force, or is that person a civilian protected by international humanitarian law? Friend or foe, civilian or combatant, the recognition of status is a complex activity we assume to take place in conscious human reasoning. Recognition adds an iterative trait to sheer cognition on the assumption that the iteration is used to match what is being cognized with some set of criteria. What? Ideally, it will at least retrospectively be possible to reconstruct and justify the decision taken by the soldier in human language. The problem with this kind of rudimentary man-machine combination is that it takes time. Consider another scenario in which sensors mounted on a military aircraft register an incoming missile. A computer on board the aircraft calculates defensive measures and launches decoys diverting the missile away from the aircraft. This is an autonomous system, which is based on a sensor device detecting the UV light emitted from the missile plume. Perception of that particular form of UV light in that particular situation equals the decision to mount countermeasures. In my first example, cognition and recognition, that is, the perception of a potential threat and the ascription of status to that threat, took place in the soldier's consciousness. In the missile aircraft example, we encounter two temporally separate stages. At the development stage, human designers gauge the system to sense UV light of a particular kind, cognition, and to react to a designated quantity of that light, recognition. The same system of sensing, cognition, and reacting, recognition, would operate on the battlefield. Automatic systems like this one still clearly separate the human work of cognition and recognition from that of the machine. What characterizes the missile contra aircraft scenario is that it opposes two of the fastest weapons used in fighting wars. When time is short, defense engineers seek to exploit opportunities for omitting human processes of recognition from the battlefield. Let us move to a third scenario in which human skills and machine skills are integrated rather than combined. Imagine a reversal of Leaf's treatment. Rather than sending electrical currents into a partly dysfunctional brain, we siphon off electrical currents from an able-bodied person looking at a piece of enemy territory and feed them directly into a weapon system. So that would be like remote neural monitoring, getting signals from the brain. Not actually siphoning them off, but reading them. I don't think it, I'll go into that in another video, but imagine a UAV operator attached to an electroencephalograph, EEG, that passes on particular electrical signals to a computer, which then opens fire on a target. At the development stage of this system, we would still have humans predetermining cognition and recognition. In battlefield operation, the human and the machine would interact in the work of cognition and recognition with contributions that are near impossible to separate from each other. But why would there be a military interest in developing such a system? Human beings are capable of processing images in parallel. This enables us to detect targets and classify them in 200 milliseconds, much faster than we become conscious of what we see. And much faster, and this is the point, than a computer could perform the same task. On a subconscious level, the brain reacts to such perceptions by sending a readiness signal to relevant parts of the motor system. This signal is received a significant number of milliseconds earlier than any conscious decision is formed in the brain and passed on as a signal by its neuronal networks. Why does this matter? Military mastering the integration of that subconscious signal into a weapon system would be able to save time by bypassing human consciousness. Such a military would possess an across-the-board superiority over enemy forces still relying on the traditional pathway from human perception over human consciousness to a human command to the weapon systems. I will call neuroweapons those weapon systems that integrate neuronal and synaptic activities of the human brain into a weapon systems, and 2, in doing so, significantly reduce the role of human consciousness before engaging a target. So, and you know, that specifically has to do with like some of the things that are done to us that happen at the speed of light. Like it's an automated system connected to a supercomputer, like Brian too says, like Robert Duncan says, that can inject something into your targeting, or an image in your mind, or an emotion in an instant, faster than a human being could manually do it, like at the remote platform. So that would have and they would have a lot to do with the attacks that are going on with us and how they are being automated. Now, human operators relate to that, how they relate to that not autonomous system, but automatic system, or AI, or the AI use. In some of these things, you know, some of these things I've experienced that human operators will manually inject something at first, and then they put it into an automated system that then injects it automatically using AI that's tied to a supercomputer. So you can take, I'm not sure if the V2K is tied to a supercomputer. I'm assuming it is, but it's like let's take this as an example. My attackers at the beginning it was people like at the platform saying things, and it wasn't like all the time. It wasn't conversation that never stops. It was every once in a while saying things like here, and then an hour later saying something, and then saying something. So they take those things over time and they put it into a software, a chatterbox software, something that Dr. Robert Duncan worked on, and completely automate it. So they put it in the stream of energy. Probably the V2K is tied into the connection to the supercomputer, but it has a program where it makes it sound like somebody's having a conversation. That's why a lot of these things that are voice to skull, the operators do are a lot of them are very similar, because they're trying to say things manually that then can be easily put into an automated program and done, so a manual operator doesn't need to take time to think about what they're going to say. It can just start doing it like as years pass with the targeting. In our three scenarios, is it the human being or the machine that decides on engaging the target or not? In the first scenario, it was the human being who decided on targeting. In the second scenario, it was the machine, provided we learn the human being commanding the deployment and activation of the system outside our frame. Command responsibility can obviously serve as a means of bringing the second scenario ultimately into the realm of human decision-making, but as we will see, it is worth our while struggling with the third scenario before resorting to the question of command responsibility. Systems integrating the human brain with machines are known as neural interface systems. And so I'll also just want to say this quickly, and I think we all know it. I don't know, some of you targeted individuals might not know this, but it's like the research and the trauma and the research and mapping of our brains from remote neural monitoring, from manipulating signals and then also getting signals, so creating a cognitive map of your brain, that's also integrated. See, they're taking that too. They're taking this experimentation with the human brain, mapping, our reactions, how we think and everything, and feeding it in to an AI system so that the AI system gets better. So that's one of the huge angles. Like the probably, I don't know, it would almost be, if it was like top 10 angles of why they're doing this to us, it would be in the top 5. It'd be in the top 3, probably. Be in the top 3 of mapping the human brain and actually using that to advance the AI that they're actually using with these autonomous systems or automatic systems or AI. I feel like I just need to either use AI or automated systems, but for me, it's like, it's not data from Star Trek. The AI they're using isn't that smart yet. but it is automated. It is making decisions about how to attack us at certain points in time. So I say automated AI. I think AI maybe gives people sometimes the wrong idea that it's actually more automated than I think it is. But artificial intelligence, I mean, yes, yeah. So I might start saying like automated or AI. I don't know, because I just feel like it's somewhere in between. Like I don't feel like it's not as smart as like Data or the Terminator or something like that, where it can actually make a decision. And I'll give examples. I'll do other videos on that. Um, let's stick to the info. Stick to the info here. Okay, where was I? I completely forgot. But as we will see, it is worth our while struggling with a third scenario before resorting to the question of command responsibility. Systems integrating the human brain with machines are known as neural interface systems, NIS, brain-machine interfaces, BMI, or brain-to-computer interfaces, BCI. So you got neural interface systems, brain-to-machine interfaces, brain-to-computer interfaces. In the military domain, such systems are currently being used in experiments for a variety of applications. One of those experiments, or many different experiments, they use that in our torture, in the torture of targeted individuals. I've had nights, and I'm sure they've done it more gradually, but there was a night where I know that one of my human operators had gear. I don't think it's a chip that goes in their ear. I keep referencing Brian too because he does have a lot of great information. He has a lot of great information. But I disagree that it's like a chip put in the ear. I think it is something like akin to a headset or something that goes on their head to actually read, get their brainwave signal, put it through the machine, and basically modulate their brain signal to match our brain signal, and then actually send a signal to our brain where we can feel what they're feeling, or they could put a visual from their head into our brain, on and on and on, things like that. So that does exist. I've experienced that in my targeting. I'm probably experiencing it like in a lot of moments where I don't realize it now, but there was some very just sure moments where I was feeling somebody's emotions that were not mine. Now, telling that to somebody who hasn't gone through targeting, well, I mean, we experience, there are also remote neural manipulation where they amplify our own emotions, or they may have somebody else's emotions, like they have, where it's not necessarily the people on the team, but it is just an emotion that they have like recorded. But I think a lot of the times it is not a lot of times, but they will use a brain to machine to brain interface with us. So that's very important. There are these systems that are in use with targeted individuals, where our human operators use these sort of things, these brain to machine interfaces. You could say that we are a brain to machine because we're being remote neural monitored. We are non-consensually tied to a computer. Non-consensually we didn't agree to it, so it can be used, somebody consensually, like our attackers doing a brain to machine, or it can be non-consensually. We're tied to a computer. So it's depressing when you say it. Okay, in the military domain, such systems are currently being used in experiments for a variety of applications. As far as I know, none of them is deployable or in an advanced stage of development. So I guess he doesn't know about what we're going through. I don't know. I haven't read this. I'm reading it for the first time now. I just skimmed it. As far as using a few examples, however, I want to suggest that neurotechnological defense applications are possible at the very least. And he is saying the very least, because they are being used all over the world. And they are being deployed in war too, which we're probably not told about. We're told about the war that goes on, but we're not told about all the advanced neurotechnologies, remote neural technologies, remote microwave, voice to God type things that they're actually doing. The one in the Iraq war did slip out, but directed energy weapons and neuroweapons have been used in many wars, like probably a couple wars before that, and then many wars after that voice to God weapon was used in Iraq. Okay. And okay, so neurotechnological defense applications are possible at the very least, and that some of them are likely to move into the development phase in the near future. Probably they already have, and that is correct. They have. They're in the development and experiment stage and application stage. There's all these different stages where they're developing certain techniques with us. They're developing certain protocols with us. They're getting more information on mapping the brain to then compile that data and put that into the AI that they're using to attack us. So it's like this thing feeding, getting more people, and it's directed by humans, directed by the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense in the United States, and then a bunch of international contractors, universities and hospitals, and then other countries have their military industrial complexes, which it's not a totally out of the question thing. It's very probable that Russia is working with some small countries with these kind of technologies, getting something from them, giving them these technologies to use, and then America's probably doing that with some small countries that they have alliances with, and then probably some of these contractors work on an international level. So you might have like Lockheed Martin working in America, but also there's Lockheed Martin in the United Kingdom working with hospitals over there and doing certain experimentation cross international, So when we think, never think that it's just this, okay, Russia's advancing these weapons, the United States is advancing these weapons, Israel's advancing these weapons, China's advancing these weapons in Australia and New Zealand. Don't think that it's all competition. That's an illusion. That's an illusion that there's it's all competition, and they're not. There's cooperation with international contractors and certain countries working together with these technologies on their populations, and then that information is floated up to, I guess I'll go into this later, but there is an oligarchy. There is an oligarchy above countries. A lot of the data and the organization of what's going on, this country's relation to this country, it's from further up than our president of the United States or even our military-industrial complex. But as we will see, okay, using a few examples, however, I want to suggest that neurotechnological defense applications are possible at the very least, and that, okay, I already read this. Some of them are likely to move into the development phase in the near future. Probably they already have, and that is the case. We would be prudent to and if that is the case, we would be prudent to consider their consequences for international humanitarian law today. Yes, we need more conversations about that. We need watchdog groups. We need commissions. We need, that tribunal, the humanitarian tribunal. We need, way more than that. We need judges and courts to acknowledge that these exist and not be, not be gagged, have a gag order because it's national security that they're murdering citizens with this experimentation. We need this out. We need more people talking about it and the implications for international humanitarian law, because non-consensual human experimentation is illegal and it is treasonous. They've made laws, they've made these underground, okay, it's wartime, so these agencies and the military-industrial complex can justify experimenting on any citizen for any reason if it's for national security and fighting terrorism, right? There are rules like that the general public don't know about, but they're completely juxtaposed with our Constitution and our law in most countries, in all the 5I countries at least. So it's a very, very important topic. It's maybe one of the most important topics in the world. Don't get down targeted individuals if you get trolls or something going y'all are crazy or mentally ill. They're idiots. They do not want the human race to survive. They're dumb. They think they're maybe protecting something, or they think that they're doing something good. they're dumb. They can't think. Their thought is so compartmentalized that they have become retarded. Okay, so and they're evil too, and they're very evil. Okay, so here are a few examples. They're either like completely the stupidest person that that could ever exist, or they're ultra evil, and their intelligence is just cognitive. It's not wisdom or a human intelligence really. It's just like having some cognitive capability to push buttons as a monkey, or say certain words to cover up the torture of little children. Like Alice in Ireland's family, she has 3 small children, and it's from her testimony, it sounds like at least two of her children, one has been affected by this technology in the womb, and then one has been affected by this technology outside, like when very small, and I'm not sure if her other child is too. I get anxious talking about that because I don't want to. It's like she talked about in her testimony, but it's almost like sometimes targeted individuals, and I know my dog is not as important as her children, but I'm like, I don't want to talk about them attacking my dog because maybe they won't have the idea to attack my dog, and so I get, when I'm talking about other people being targeted, especially children, but it's a definite, so tool bags who are trying to cover this up, even if they are not paid, even if it's just of their own volition that they're trying to cover this up and think that we're mentally ill, they're idiots. They're idiots, because awesome, intelligent women and their families are being, tortured and experimented on. And and a bunch of other families besides Alice in Ireland's families, and Targeted Citizen, he has I think an adopted son, a son that his wife had from a previous marriage, and his son is saying that voices are talking to him, and this is like a 7-year-old child. So this is something that not only is it in hypothesis, they have to be experimenting on children. There's many examples of them experimenting on children with V2K and neuroweapons and other things. And if a child at 7 years old starts getting hit with neuroweapons, and then the brain is still developing, how dangerous is that? And I say very, very dangerous. And this is such important information. Okay, so here are a few examples from publicly reported research in recent years. 2 Iranian researchers have recently proposed a BCI system that detects sleepiness in military sentinels by monitoring soldiers' neuronal activities through EEG signals online. As military personnel are required to remain active for very long periods in contemporary contexts, sleepiness is a major practical issue. Silent talk permits soldiers to communicate through EEG signals of intended speech rather than through actual speech or body gestures. So it's like a brain-to-brain kind of link up where they're doing silent V2K. Like my V2K, I can hear it, it's audible, but sometimes my attackers will do it where it comes in my inner voice. My subconscious brain, or I can't hear it audibly, but my system picks up on that, and then it's represented in my inner voice. That's probably what they're talking about here. The silent talk permits soldiers to communicate through EEG signals of intended speech rather than through actual speech or body gestures. And we know about the, there's a really huge bump right behind my ear. It's like really big, and it hurts a lot. And then we also know that Google is coming out with, they're coming out with this thing that people can whatever they're thinking of, whatever they're planning on saying, can be written out in text. So Google is taking all this experiment, like on us, on targeted individuals throughout the decades, and they're trickling it out into consumer markets that the military-industrial complex is tied into, and all that. I want to do a video on that. Oh my God, this feels dangerous. It's like not a zit, it's like a bump, like the nerve back there, and it hurts. Okay, this might serve the needs of special forces or help to overcome the problem of extremely noisy battlefield environments. Research has shown that brain signals can be used to predict spoken or imagined words, yet it seems that practical questions remain to be answered before military communication system drawing on silent talk can be built. Another is and it's being experimented with on targeted individuals all over the world. This silent talk, people call it synthetic telepathy, or I call it V2K that you can hear with your inner ears. I call that audible V2K. But then I call the V2K that you can't really pick up audibly, but that it's going to your system anyway, and your inner voice is then saying something because it's picking up. I call it subliminal V2K. I don't know. You guys put some things in the comment if you want to respond to that about what you call different types of things. But I think of synthetic telepathy and subliminal V2K as kind of the same thing, you know. I guess synthetic telepathy could also cover remote neural manipulation things, but I call remote neural manipulation, remote neural monitoring, and then anything that has to do with V2K, even though it may be tied into that same system, I break it off and say this type of V2K. You know. God, I keep losing my place. This thing in the back of my head, I'm gonna have to do something with this. Research has shown that brain signals can be used to predict spoken or imagined words, yet it seems that practical questions remain to be answered before a military communication system drawing on silent talk can be built. Another is a DARPA proposal for a cognitive technology threat warning system featuring neurotechnologically enhanced binoculars that can quickly respond to a subconsciously detected target or threat. A third one is a telepresence, allowing a soldier at one location to be sensing and interacting at another location through a BMI, brain-to-machine interface. Will neuroscience be used to break down the massive image and data overload generated by UAVs? Recently, 4 U.S. researchers reported their attempt to integrate automated neural processing of visual information into a U.S. Army simulation environment to detect targets. Torian et al. Used the environment of a ground vehicle crew station to test whether the human brain can successfully identify targets automatically by offering neuronal response to video footage. They reported that our results indicate the potential for significant benefits to be realized by incorporating brain-to-computer interface technology into future Army systems. This illustrates that neurotechnological targeting applications are slowly making their way towards deployability in actual combat, and they are being used in combat in certain in military. It's just not shown on the mainstream news, and then they're also being used in an experimental and advancement deployment on us as targeted individuals. Finally, one recent DARPA supported study by Stoica et al. Suggests that decisions on targeting selection might be made through a BCI that pools a collective of operators rather than dealing with operators one by one. Neural signals of a number of operators are fed into a computer and then processed. So that's why, you know, we call the people who are maybe human operators hive team members, you know, because they're connected to each other. They can do things on a level where it's more than just one brain to computer to brain interface. It's a lot of them connected. And I haven't really, you know, I don't think that much about that, but I think I might really look into that, because that's a very important part of all this. Neural signals of a number of operators are fed into a computer and then processed. The study has shown that the performance of such multi-operator BCIs is superior to that of single-operator BCIs. The latter study is perhaps the most striking indication that the unconscious perception of human beings as mirrored in their neural signals is about to be integrated collectively into a single computing superstructure. The latter study is perhaps the most striking indication that the unconscious perception of human beings as mirrored in their neural signals is about to be integrated collectively into a single computing superstructure. While the massive expansion of UAVs will lead to single operators controlling swarms of UAVs, it appears that BCIs operating swarms of human beings providing neural signals is no longer an unrealistic thought. And I would guarantee that they're trying to advance in research with those capabilities with our like our operators are practicing with those kind of capabilities, brain to machine, to then our brain, and doing that like hive mind teams. I guarantee you that is one huge angle and aspect to some of our targeting, the protocols of some of our targeting. Now there could be targets that it's completely automated, and there's people that come in and check on it. I don't know, I don't know. Got to get more concrete data, BMIs confront us with our assumptions on mind and body. Are they two separate entities, or is one to be explained through the other? If so, is it the mind or the body that is calling the shots, or a particular combination of both? Do our assumptions rely upon the existence of a superior entity that somehow coordinates the two? How much? Okay, 1 hour and 15 minutes. It's a very long article, guys. I'm definitely going to have to do a part 2, but I wanted to get through as much as I can. What I may do, I'll go ahead and finish this, and then finish international humanitarian law, and then I'll just do a part 2 and finish it all. I kind of want to get, you see where the my arrow is hitting, I want to get kind of to the middle of that, so at least I'll have gone through half of the article. So international humanitarian law. IHL has a bearing on the choice of targets and the way in which they are engaged. For all three scenarios, the relevant IHL rules can be reduced to 2. The first is the rule of distinction. The parties to a conflict shall at times distinguish between the civilian population and combatants, and between civilian objects and military objectives, and accordingly direct their operations only against military objectives. The second is the principle of proportionality. Rule 14 of the customary international law study commissioned by the International Committee of the Red Cross expresses the principle in the following way. Launching an attack that may be expected to cause incidental loss of civilian life, injury to civilians, damage to civilian objects, or a combination thereof, which would be excessive in relation to the concrete and direct military advantage anticipated, is prohibited. As the use of weapons which are by nature indiscriminate is prohibited, it would make no sense to develop neuroweapons if they were just that. Today we are not in a position to study the functioning of deployed weapon systems incorporating neurotechnology, and thus it may seem overly speculative to ponder whether they are by nature indiscriminate. I don't really understand this point. However, Article 36 of the Protocol additional to the Geneva Conventions of 12 August 1949 and relating to the protection of victims of international armed conflicts, 8 June of 1977, obliges states to anticipate the functioning of a weapon system and to determine the legality of its future use. We need some lawyers jumping into this, like neuroethics. We need them jumping in. There are neuroweapons, directed energy weapon systems, and neuroweapon systems being used to rape the minds and bodies of civilians all across the globe. We need some brave lawyers to jump into this, like this guy's doing, but only very focused on what's happening to targeted individuals. We're gonna get it too. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming in a wave, in a snowball. It's coming. In the study, development, acquisition, or adoption of a new weapon, means or method of warfare, a high contracting party is under an obligation to determine whether its employment would, in some or all circumstances, be prohibited by this protocol or by any other rule of international law applicable to the high contracting party. I think this, these weapons being used on us just goes against every kind of international law, every kind of international humanitarian law that they put out. But that's why they're hiding it You got to know, guys. This is dragging this stuff into light. Keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. They're hiding it for a specific reason, because when it's dragged out into the light, they know that that huge committees, law committees and stuff, will be making laws on this. Will be making global laws if it was just out in the light. And there was a lot of controversy around it, which we're getting to. We're getting to that. We need this. We need people talking about it, either saying they don't. Who cares? If somebody talks about it and they're like, I just don't believe that's happening, and we're having conversations. I think having conversations about the existence of these weapons is stupid, but most of the population is stupid. So we might have to have those conversations. And I'm not, there's lots of smart people too, and there's lots of good people in the world, but we're being dumbed down. Like in a global, systematic way, people are being dumbed down by mind control, by toxins, by things vaccines, and that's all happening by the system itself. By how we relate to each other, by social media outlets such as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We still got to use those platforms to get important information out. Article 36 API is formulated broadly to cover weapons as well as other means or methods of warfare. To the extent that neurotechnology informs future weapons systems, states are under an obligation to consider how the resulting weapon system would relate to IHL obligations. However, for obvious reasons, states are keeping the content of reviews under Article 36 API confidential. So we do not know to what extent the impact of neurotechnology on the legality of using future weapon systems is considered by states, and with what results. Yeah, it's all being hidden. All the stuff they're doing with neuroweapons and neurotechnology is being hidden, and they always use we're fighting terrorism or it's national security, and then people have to respect that even if they are non-consensually murdering citizens around the world. That national, I think Julian Assange is a hero, and a lot of people would say he's a villain because he's putting lives in danger by going against national security and stuff like that. Once this national security and holding secrecy is used to kill innocent civilians, torture them in terminal experiments, and rape them, they're not allowed to have it. They're not allowed to have it. Whatever kind of consequences that come out from pulling this into the light, the good things that are going to come from the public being aware about this vastly outweigh them. So, I don't know, some of those. Well, I'm not gonna go into that right now. But I want to say that I think that's a privilege. I think it's a privilege by people that we trust to have national security secrets and to be able to say, hey, we can't talk about certain things because it's national security. I think it's can only be used by people that the people trust, because the government and the military-industrial complex should work for the people, and it doesn't work like that anymore. The people are there for the military-industrial complexes to rip apart and rape and use however they like to get money and sell different weapons to both sides of the wars. The governments, the people are there for them, and they're not there for the people anymore. It's just a switch, just a kind of a very not communist, but a new thing, like a technocracy. I like to call it. I heard this term from Ryan. I forget his last name, but he does some YouTube videos on a bunch of different topics. I can't remember his last name, but he's really cool. And he says we basically live today in the world. We live in an anarcho-tyranny. So the leadership, people with power and position in our society, can do anything they want, including raping my family with neuroweapons, hitting all of you guys with neuroweapons, electronically raping us with directed energy weapon systems. But we can't do anything if we go forward in a red light or whatever, pass a red light or something. We get $250 fines, and we have tyranny. The regular population, we have tyranny. We can't do anything. We can't, we're all watching each other, and any little thing that's not even really a crime we could get in trouble for, but the people with position and power can do whatever they want, and it will be protected by the control mechanisms within the system. So we've actually turned all of the societies we live in into basic anarcho-tyranny. Or not we as the people, but the systems above us. I don't think the systems are really above us, but that's how they see, they see themselves up in the pyramidal structure of society. Is there any doctrinal writing on the compatibility of neurotechnological weapon systems with IHL? While there are a number of texts on neuroscience and the law, writings on its relation to IHL remain scant. A full-length doctrinal analysis of such weapon systems under IHL and international criminal law is Stephen E. White's 2008 note entitled Brave New World, Neuro-Warfare and the Limits of International Humanitarian Law. The cadence of arguments emerging from White's notes is this. First, he suggests that international law most likely does not prohibit brain-machine interfaced weapons. White thinks that such weapons have an unparalleled degree of precision, and their domestic use in U.S. homeland operations affirms their discriminate and therefore lawful nature, and that international law has been slow to condemn aerial bombardment due to its clear utility. While I would agree that there are no general prohibitions of aerial bombardments as such, the first two claims seem premature to me. This is because no BMI-based weapon systems have yet been deployed. Therefore, we cannot pronounce ourselves on their degree of precision in empirical settings, and neither can we, as White seems to do, draw inferences on state practice or opinio juris. I think I'm not going to make this video longer than 2 hours, guys. I know that's really long, but this is just such an important article, and it kind of, this guy, it seems like he has a lot of knowledge with the law, with international humanitarian law, and so we're going to have to draw upon knowledge that's already been gotten in this arena, and work to incorporate it with how we talk about this, with things that we're doing, which a lot of targeted individuals and organizations are already working so hard to incorporate international humanitarian law. The alleged lack of international humanitarian law constraints leads White to suggest, in the second place, that new law is needed to regulate neurotechnological weapon systems. He supports this conclusion with his contention that war crimes committed with BMI weapon systems will be impossible to prosecute due to the mens rea requirement. I fully agree with him that operators' mens rea will be generally difficult to establish in this class of weapons. I don't agree with that, because if a gun shoots somebody and hurts them, it's a weapon. The person using the gun is a murderer or is a attempted murderer. If you take something like neuroweapons and you shoot them at somebody, or use them in any way to hurt that person, it's a weapon. You've used it to hurt somebody. It seems simple. It seems that should be kept simple. If something damages somebody, especially like manipulating and changing like brain chemistry and the basically electromagnetic energy of the brain that you usually have, I mean, that's rape. That's rape of the brain. It's damaging the human being. It seems simple to me. I fully agree with him that operators' mens rea will be generally difficult to establish in this class of weapons. White believes that impunity may be avoided by developing a form of responsibility for the designers and creators of brain-machine interfaced weapon systems. I cannot concur with that proposal, because I think that a sufficiently clear demarcation between developers' responsibility, command responsibility, and subordinate responsibility is quite impossible. Yeah, command responsibility. I think the people using them. I mean, I think everybody, like people who manufacture weapons that are used in the wrong way, we should go after them with the law, and then actually the contractors who have teams of people that use the weapon system, the integrated weapons platforms. I think that it's probably the contractors and subcontractors that are doing it directly that we've got to go after first. But the Department of Defense is also, giving the money. Richard Kane, he has when he entered his his affidavit, it kind of said who he was bringing the charges against, and I think he won some of the charges against some of the people that he brought as the defendant. That he put it. Oh my god. Oh, it's like a blood vessel is like kind of ballooned up and it hurts. What were they doing last night to me? It's changed. It's changed a lot since I've gotten out of the Faraday bunker. They're switching things up. So, why do I reject White's proposal that the introduction of developers' responsibility is helpful? IHL envisages both state responsibility and individual criminal responsibility in case of grave breaches. Breaching the principles of distinction and of proportionality presupposes conscious decisions at some level in the hierarchy of decision takers. As long as we believe that the concept of operator presupposes the ability to consciously take decisions on the operation of a system, it might be the case that it is the BMI weapon system that operates a human being rather than the other way around. As White would avow, the line between unconscious and conscious decision-making by the operator of a neurotechnological weapon system is all but impossible to draw. One might hope that command responsibility could offset this disadvantage. Not so. Command responsibility presupposes that the subordinate has the capability of committing violations of international humanitarian law. Consider Article 28 of the Rome Statute on the responsibility of commanders and other superiors. Subparagraph A specifies the responsibility of military commanders in the following way. Okay, this is interesting. A military commander or person effectively acting as a military commander should be criminally responsible for crimes within the jurisdiction of the court committed by forces under his or her effective command and control, or effective authority and control as the case may be, as a result of his or her failure to exercise control properly over such forces, where 1. That military commander or person either knew or, owing to the circumstances at the time, should have known that the forces were committing or about to commit such crimes, and the military commander or person failed to take all necessary and reasonable measures within his or her power to prevent or repress their commission, or to submit the matter to the competent authorities for investigation and prosecution. Now, I think that there are good laws. I think that there are good laws in the military, about crimes by a commander. Commander takes responsibility, and then soldiers who do really bad stuff have to be court-martialed and things like that. That's the reason that I think with this kind of experimentation and torture, they are using ex-military that go into these contractors. Kind of like Blackwater, where it started to be like a mercenary group that privately funded, that could still go into war and do things, but didn't have as much responsibility. It was harder to put responsibility on them for doing horrible things. And Blackwater just changed its name, right? It's changed its name. They just changed their name, and people kind of forget the atrocities they committed. That's how I think that this is run. Some hospitals have contractors or subcontractors connected to them, all tied into the Department of Defense, but they actually get people that are not currently military to do this to citizens. I'm saying in most cases. Some of you guys may think that it's current military doing it to you. This is from what I've researched and just my personal opinion, in this case, because it is informed. It is an informed opinion, but I think that they actually get ex-military to go and work at these contractors and subcontractors to actually carry out the weapons torture and the experimentation and such, because then it's harder to say, oh, we need to court-martial them, or the people that are they switch up the system, they evolve the system so that the system isn't really built to handle it. I think we've got a lot of that going on with the neuro weapons experimentation. Leave your comment about that if you think it's current military maybe doing it. Because a lot of people think that law enforcement is actually doing their targeting, but I really do. It may be like ex-law enforcement, ex-military, ex-agency workers that then go into these contractors, that get jobs with these contractors to work with these weapons, and maybe manage all these teams, the team that would be on me, and then maybe a team on another targeted individual in my city or my state, and then there's like a manager above them, and then a manager above them, you know, in a business, kind of in a business pyramidal structure. Superior responsibility under the Rome Statute is thus premised on the very existence of a subordinate committing or about to commit a crime. The use of the term forces in conjunction with the term crime suggests that the drafters believed that forces consisted of natural persons and not weapon systems. To the extent the subordinate is operated by the weapon system rather than operating it, I would argue that he or she is not a subordinate in the sense of the Rome Statute and international humanitarian law. Where there is no subordinate, there is no superior. Where there is no subordinate committing or about to commit a crime, there is no superior committing a crime or a violation of IHL by means of superior responsibility. This is getting pretty boring, and I'm kind of not really understanding what I'm reading. I mean, I kind of understand it, but it's a lot of, I guess it's a lot of legal terminology. If furthermore we are to understand White's proposal as a civilian form of command responsibility, it works no better than the military command responsibility that I have just analyzed. The same structure of responsibility remains. Is there any other plausible alternative if, as White suggests, developers were to be made responsible for the consequences incurred by the weapon systems they develop without being able to control the military operations in which they are used? They would be effectively subject to a regime of strict liability. How would this affect the economy of incentives? Who cares how it affects the economy of incentives? Yeah, we got to stop crime and treason and terrorism for real, not just the lip service that our military-industrial complex gives to us. We need to really, really fight terrorism, done by the people that are telling us we need to fight terrorism. Boy, that's a mirror inside of a mirror, right? Imposing strict liability for the effect of newly developed weapon systems is but a veiled form of outlawing that development altogether, and it is quite unrealistic to expect major state players in IHL to support such a regime in case of neuroweapons. Let us revert to our third scenario and ask a prior question I missed in White's paper. Is a state at all capable of applying international humanitarian law when employing a future BMI weapon system? I pursue two different paths when probing for an answer. Here is the first. Experts regularly explain the difference between a human being and a computer by suggesting that human beings are characterized by imagination and reason, while computers are characterized by calculation and logic. Yeah, so what they're basically talking about here, I guess, in this is that, you know, if a machine is automated and does it automatically, like an AI does something, like say there are some targeted individuals who it's completely automated, but somebody comes in and checks the systems, you know, there's like if something goes wrong, somebody will come and check what's going on. Mine I have human operators, but then you know, an automated bidirectional stream of energy that's tied into a supercomputer deciding what's being done to me. The answer is simple. Whoever created those systems that are doing that violence, and whoever's directing them or whatever, like that business that's doing it, or that contractor, or that, you know, that agency is at fault. Whoever is programming those systems is at fault. The computer can't take fault because it's just programmed. And I mean, I don't even think, even in the future, if artificial intelligence is very, you know, very advanced and can decide for its own self, you know, kind of like that movie with Will Smith, where, you know, the artificial intelligence ended up committing murder and stuff like that. It's by the people who made it. It's always going to be by the people who made it, no matter how complicated the robot is. I just think that's a simple thing. The person who made it, they have to take responsibility for that. We can have great AI, well, I'm actually against AI advancement at this point. The way that we're doing it, the way that the world is doing it, and all these corporations and the military-industrial complex are doing it, I'm against it, and it needs to be done in a whole different way with the public knowing about it. Everything that they're doing with AI, the public needs to be aware of, because if it's going to be such a huge singularity or whatever, which I'm also fighting against, then all of the public needs to know about it. Okay, so first it concerns the expectation of loss. So in this context, I would like to emphasize two aspects of the norm of proportionality. First, it concerns the expectation of loss. This in turn presupposes the capability of imagination. Secondly, it is about a relationship of excess between loss and gain. This again presupposes the capability of reasoning on incommensurable elements, civilian loss and military advantage, and of assigning value to each. I think this is making things way too complicated in my, that's just what I think. I'm going to read through it anyway, but who programmed the thing? Say with my targeting, there's an automated element, right, where a machine is like, it had to get some manual things and then automate those manual things, and then it might decide which manual things that it's been programmed to do it's going to switch in between automatically. But it's the people who made that who are at fault. They're the ones that who program the machine to target my head, to target my body and stuff like that. It's the people. I think that's just simple. It's simple. If they make something that causes damage and it's like criminal violence or criminal damage, the people who made the systems or are controlling the systems. I guess some things they're going to create, and it's going to be the machines are making the decisions. I think that should not exist. I don't think that should exist. I think some with this, I don't think anything. I think everything needs to be scrapped right now. I think the military needs to stop. It needs to stop experimenting on citizens, and everything needs to be rethought with morals and wisdom. I know that's like it's a hopeless thing pretty much. So I'm not even going to say like, oh, well, I know they're going to do this and blah, blah, because I want it all scrapped. I want it all scrapped. I want the public to know about it. I want us to, take all these secrets out of the light so that if it's used in war or something, people will be aware of it, like the public, the civilian population will be aware that it's being used. So that's a really big fool's hope, because of the way that all the military-industrial complexes of countries are run. To give this understanding some traction in Western traditions of thought, the mythical narrative of the Golem of Prague may come in well. The Golem is a homunculus figure manufactured by man and combining human and superhuman features. In one telling, Rabbi Lowe of Prague was said to have created the Golem with its superior strength in order to defend the Prague Jewry from the risks of an impending pogrom. Certain renderings of the myth cast the golem as incapable of speaking, strangely echoing the side effects of treating Parkinson's disease by DBS. In the end, the golem proved incapable of observing the foundational norms of its mission, to defend the Jewish inhabitants of Prague threatened by persecution and turn indiscriminately violent. In this narrative, the capability of observing the law of self-defense, as it were, is at least imaginatively linked to the possession of language. The more autonomy offered to the mute golem, it seems, the less able the golem will be to act lawfully. And I think that's probably a really good story, and it's probably that's a good metaphor for what is happening with AI. The more and more responsibility that you give to automated systems, who's programming it? Violent psychopaths are programming most of the AI in our society that's being used in our society. How's it going to act? It's going to act like its creators. We're said to be, man is said to be made in the image of God. So we, some of us try and act in the image of God or the image of Jesus Christ, while others do not. But it just seems like, I guess I won't complicate that metaphor, but, the creation tends up acting like the creator, I guess that doesn't really work because people are falling into sin and using free will to murder children and all this horrible stuff and torture people violently. So that's not really in the image of the God that I believe in. All right, let me go and move forward. I end up complicating my own metaphors. Here's the second path. Let me illustrate how the mind-body problem is inadvertently acted out in the introduction to a 2009 article on Law and the Revolution in Neuroscience, an early look at the field by Henry T. Greeley. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this section up, guys. You know, it's good information, and I just want to read it through, just in case some of y'all just want to listen to it. But I'm also going to put up the link in the description. Articles like this are truly important because they are talking about, like, on an international scale. We need to start talking about humanitarian law, and you know, people can't just these underground rules that a military-industrial complex can do whatever it wants to any citizen. That underground rule has to be hidden from the public, because if it's not hidden, the public is gonna dispute it, is gonna get angry, and so that's why we got to bring all this stuff out, because the public will, once they know that this is 100% true, there's still some question in society. It's still hidden in a way where it's like people are like, oh, that could exist, but maybe it doesn't. So there's question about when there's no longer any question, and it's a common topic, it's a common knowledge topic, and people talk about it at their dinner tables. Then we're gonna see a lot more things get done. We're gonna see a lot more probability of the things that the TI community are doing being successful. I think I said that right grammatically, but I'm not sure. Let me drink some more of my energy drink. Oh, I know what this thing is, man. I hope it's just a muscle that's like swelling up. Everything that you just perceived, saw, heard, felt, or contemplated, as far as we can tell, it is all neurons giving off and taking up neurotransmitters, and that's it. The entire universe that exists within each of our skulls seems to be the product of these electrochemical reactions. That's all. It is a daunting vision, and one that has taken me a long time to accept, but I have ultimately become convinced of its truth, largely because there doesn't seem to be any place for anything else to be. I disagree with him, but certainly modern neuroscience works on the premise that our minds, our thoughts, our perceptions, our emotions, our beliefs, our actions are all generated by our brains, by the roughly 100 billion physical neurons and their several hundred connections or synapses per neuron. I won't get into my disagreements on that because I do talk about a lot, like quantum physics and what's inside in between atoms and what connects us to our creator. We might have things that science has not figured out that are actually, we have a hard time connecting with, that are quantumly connected to other things in our universe. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that science has not figured out. So are we just mass, energy, are we just energy and frequency? I do not think so. A lot of people think that's where it ends. But when new science comes out, a lot of people are like, well, we figured it all out, done. And what's the general case? That they're always wrong, that there's always something more to learn. Although Greeley somewhat caricatures the richness and interdeterminacy of the debate on the significance of neuroscience, the introduction is beautiful in the way it squarely, perhaps naively, begs the question of the place of language and, by extension, law. If all we have is the firing of neurons in neural networks, who could point out a place where law is in its own and from which it can be applied? This made me think about the elective affinity between Greeley's purported mainstream view of the human and that of transhumanist fringe thinkers who are discussing the uploading of human consciousness onto a computer. This, they think, would liberate the mind from the body and allow that mind to achieve morality, moving around from system to system. And, you know, I think it's simply bull crap that you could take, because take me for instance. They could take my mind when they do, because they are trying to develop that. Even with our targeting, they're trying to map the mind and be able to maybe take somebody's mind and map it. But once you put that mind on a computer, you're no longer experiencing it. You're no longer immortal. You, as you, are dead. You're dead and up in heaven, or wherever we go in the next life. You know, I think heaven. I think a sort of heaven. I don't know what it's going to look like, but my point is, before I get off the point too much, like always, it's not going to be you. It's not immortality. It's going to be a facsimile, an artificial facsimile of an organic brain. And when you're an organic person, you have an organic brain, your brain's never the same. You're always learning new things. Your frequency's changing. All this stuff. When you map that organic brain, like, that's why, and I just want to say this quickly, and I don't think that, I think Brian too has a lot of great information, but I do disagree that when your mind is completely mapped, you're not toast. You're not doomed, because your brain, even after that's mapped, your brain's going to be different in the next couple of seconds. But I'll talk about that later. Always do enjoy like bringing in Brian Two's research into this, because he has some very good information, and I don't do it a lot because he's burned a lot of bridges and accused people of being perps. I need to talk to him about that, and because he has some good points. I disagree with him on a lot, but a lot of his research is very important stuff that targeted individuals need to think of, and it really jives with the things that I'm learning to, things that I'm researching. It jives with that. Okay, I always feel like I have to do a disclaimer. Sorry, Brian, if you're watching this, but you've accused a lot of people, and all right, let me move on. I didn't want to get into that. Okay. Where law is something from which it can be applied. Where was I? So, okay, this, they think, would liberate the mind from the body and allow that mind to achieve immortality, moving around from system to system. Greeley emphasizes the neurons giving off and taking up neurotransmitters, to the extent that those signals can be mapped and expressed in a binary code. The distance between a mainstream law professor and a fringe transhumanist suddenly decreases dramatically. I say this with the greatest respect for Professor Greeley and his transhumanists. We dearly need their analysis in order to extrapolate the thinking at work in the development of neuroweapons. For those who believe with Professor Greeley that electrochemical reactions give us a full causal explanation of whatever we saw, heard, felt, or contemplated, it should be good news that neuroscience can map them to a fair extent. Consider the following projection. In the first phase, we repeatedly assemble a large group of IHL, International Humanitarian Law experts from all continents with a superior track record in applying IHL to a broad variety of combat situations. We link them up to devices mapping their brain activity and their eye movements. We take them through a large number of audio-visual targeting simulations in which IHL norms have to be applied to specific weapon systems in specific combat situations. Both the brain activities and eye movements, as well as the legal judgments verbalized by the experts, are recorded. We do the same mapping exercise on a randomly composed non-expert group. From a comparison of the two data sets, we derive the patterns of decision-making and the range of outcomes that characterize IHL experts. These are then coded so that they can be understood by the computer of the weapon systems. The weapon system is now running IHL software. In a second phase, the experts in the IHL software are looped. In a large number of simulations, the experts follow the decision-making by that IHL software and correct it where they think it errs. Now the software is ready for deployment. It processes standard IHL issues much faster than any human being would. When it encounters atypical scenarios, it automatically alerts a military commander advised by an IHL expert who then take over. Now that's probably very close to that, and that's a great idea. I wish that like the supercomputer and the AI that they were building had the thoughts of an international humanitarian lawyer, and they could not do anything that goes against that. That would be a dream. That would be a good dream. This is a nightmare that we're in. Well, I was going to say something else. Let me just keep reading. When it encounters atypical scenarios, okay, that's what that's probably a lot like if your targeting is completely like automated, you probably have somebody on standby when there's a really atypical scenario, like something like you do things more randomly or something like that, that will get a certain notification or something like that, and then can come in and do manual injections. That it made me think of that. You know, I actually think with mine and a lot of other targeted individuals that there's a dedicated shift workers. Like I think I have 2 on a shift, 3 shifts a day. You know, so and it's a hypothesis with a lot of evidence. I think that I might go through some of those. I forget a lot, and I'm going to start writing down like, okay, this situation really makes me think that it's not just automated. Like the other night, I don't really want to get into it. Well, the other night I was taking down part of my Faraday bunker, and right when I started to pull the things of aluminum off of it, and I sat back down in my chair, the external hitch just started like hitting me in the neck and the head, and they were like super pumped up. It was like an extremely heavy external attack. I think that was my attackers. They were like, oh, he's taking down his Faraday bunker, let's scare him, to make him think when he takes down that Faraday bunker that he's going to be exposed to these external attacks like that. So it was a human, like, we know that this is going to scare him, so we're going to do this. It was there was a human factor that I felt there, you know, and sometimes that's, you know, it's very hard because automated or AI could be very, very far along where it really does things that you're like, oh, could a human being have done that? But there's a feeling of a human factor. That's a little bit more like a spider sense. Like my spider sense or my empathetic nature is pretty refined. It's a little bit too much now that I've been traumatized and my brain's been traumatized. It's working and it's too much sometimes. But my spider sense is pretty good about what's going on. You know what I'm saying? All right. Let's go ahead and finish up this section because I think I'm getting to about 2 hours, guys. Yeah, I'm very close. I didn't want to do a really long video, but this is so important, and they're talking about it with international and humanitarian law. I know some of you guys, you know, will go read it yourselves maybe, but just in case, we can all read it together. It's a little bit more fun than just sitting there and reading all the complicated legal language. High movements as well. We do the same mapping. Okay, so he's already said that. Now the software is ready for deployment. It processes standard IHL issues much faster than any human being would. When it encounters atypical scenarios, it automatically alerts a military commander advised by an IHL expert who then take over. Save for that emergency delegation to humans, it is functionally analogical to the automatic anti-missile system mounted in the military aircraft in my second scenario. That projection is entirely of my own invention, and I hasten to emphasize that it is not something I propagate. In this projection, IHL is transformed into something empirically observable. It is also run through Greeley's material source of truth, namely the neuronal networks of IHL experts. Returning to my question whether a state employing a BMI weapon system would be capable of applying IHL, my invention would allow an answer in the affirmative. So he's saying you could make software with people who know a lot about international humanitarian law to watchdog certain AIs that are being created. Like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea to run parallel with these weapon systems and decide if something's right or if something's wrong. That's a brilliant idea. I mean, I know they're never going to do that because they want to cause evil with these systems. You know, they want to cause a lot of chaos in society, and they're using these neuroweapons to do it. But that would be a great and just an honorable and just a moral way of doing this. Like, is this right? Is this, using it in this way? You'd have international, and you could update it. They could update the international humanitarian law AI running with the other programs. That's a good idea. Is this a completely hypothetical case? Not necessarily. Evidence from the sphere of unmanned systems and robotics suggests that the automated application of IHL is actively being considered. while they're not using it with our stuff, with with our cases of being tortured. The guy on my B2K, the male voice goes, "You got it, you got it." Fucking hate him. Okay, while the discourse on unmanned systems and military robotics is quite separate from that on military applications in neuroscience, I would submit that developmental trends from the former could very well inspire the latter. In 2013, BAE Systems, the British Aerospace and Defense Company, and they're huge in directed energy weapons testing, directed energy weapons manufacturing, conducted test flights with Tyrannus, a radar-evading supersonic unmanned jet fighter. In theory, advanced programming could allow Tyrannus and competitor UAVs to decide on their own whether or not to bomb a convoy of vehicles or a factory. BAE insists Tyrannus will never be left to make such decisions, noting any future in-service systems based on such a concept design will be under the command of highly skilled ground-based operators who will also be able to remotely pilot the aircraft. Okay, good. Okay, this is a good point to stop here. And then I'm going to finish it maybe tonight or tomorrow. The question is whether the oh, it's still a lot. The question is whether the advanced programming alluded to by the Financial Times defense correspondent already comprises a rudimentary IHL functionality, or whether the application of IHL will be the exclusive domain of highly skilled ground-based operators and the commanders supervising them. Here's an example of technology not merely possible or probable, its development is well underway and deployment expected post-2030. Second, in a multi-annual research effort funded by the U.S. Army Research Office, Professor Ronald Arkin of the Georgia Institute of Technology and director of its Mobile Robot Laboratory has attempted to show the basis, motivation, theory, and design recommendations for the implementation of an ethical control and reasoning system potentially suitable for constraining lethal actions in an autonomous robotic system so that they fall within the bounds prescribed by the laws of war and rules of engagement. In the publications reporting this research, he outlines the architecture for an ethical control system for lethal robots and claims that it might be superior to humans in implementing IHL. He underscores that his research is merely at the proof of concept stage, but argues for a continuing research effort. Why then should we not adopt a neurotechnologically enabled IHL software? What would be lost? What would its introduction mean for IHL and its relationship to the waging of war? By asking these questions, I want to challenge my own assumption that there should be a place for language, politics, and the law in future warfare. I think he makes a great argument that it should be in all of these things, especially with non-consensual human experimentation. Non-consensual human experimentation should not exist. Should not exist. I just want to, I'm not sure how this would work, but if they wanted to do this morally, and then they wanted to do it morally from the start, I'm sure that there are terminal patients with cancer, or they have terminal illnesses, and they would volunteer to do something good for their world, to develop this technology. They would maybe volunteer for some of this experimentation. Like even in the 1950s, they would be they would be revered and they could make that decision on their own. Even just that one little thing, and I know there's complications within there, but if they really wanted to, if the people at the top really wanted to find a moral way to develop these weapons, it would be slower. It'd be a little bit slower, yes, but the things, the fruits that came from this technology would be it wouldn't be tainted. It wouldn't be evil. It wouldn't be cursed. This technology is now cursed. And things that are going to come from it will be very evil because the means are the ends. Never forget that, everybody. The means are the ends. How you get there is just as important as getting there. That's a lie being told to our society, especially like Masons and people in some of these and other fraternal organizations and involved in the military-industrial complex, that the means justify the ends always. And that is not true. And that is not true. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop there. I'll finish this. I'll try and finish it in one more video, maybe tonight or tomorrow. I might kind of just chill out today and figure out This kind of feels really, I might put some ice on it or something. And my V2K was going the whole time. It's changed a little bit since I've gotten out of the Faraday bunker. They're saying things that I have not heard before, which is weird. Which is weird when talking about Chatterbox. Like the guy, I haven't heard him say, "You got it, man," a lot. So they're saying they might be manually injecting because they had things set up a certain way, and then when I stopped using it, it changed things. So now they have to. They might have had more things automated then, and now they have to manually inject certain things. I don't know. I'll figure out some things, but some things, if you're gonna drive yourself, crazy, like, okay, are they doing this or are they doing that, and you don't do it all the time. Don't do it all the time. Take some time to ignore it and do other stuff. Take a lot of time to ignore it. That's basically how I don't go crazy from voice to skull, because there was a certain point, and it wasn't just one day, but there was a certain process where the V2K became a background noise, and if I wanted to pay attention to it, I could. But if I don't want to pay attention to it, it's really just it's something that's always there, but I don't even have to listen to it. Like, so our brains and our spirit, what's connected to God, is so strong. Even if it feels like you're not as connected as you want to be, you're still connected. And it's about getting back to feeling that connection more, and also about adapting what's around that, what's around our spirit or our soul. Our brain, our body, mind over matter, spirit definitely over mind and matter, right? So it's just about, doing that. And the body and the mind are so strong, guys. They can either be used against, the mind can be used against you, or it can fight in ways that you could never imagine, even against things attacking it, even against weapons that are attacking your mind. Your mind is so powerful if used to fight against them and for you. Do not allow your mind to be a thing that is used to fight against you. The weapons, yes, they're attacking, manipulating, but don't help them any. And I'll go over, that's a very important subject. It's a very important subject, and I've found ways. Sometimes I've gone through this stuff so long that I'm like, well, I get used to it, and I'm not sure, like, I don't remember to make a video about it, because I'm just like, it's something I go through all the time. But it could be very valuable to some targeted individuals who have not gone through what I've gone through, or maybe are having a problem with something. Like, they're maybe at a point in time in their targeting where the V2K was with me back then, I guess just a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. I was at a point, it was probably 1.5 years ago, I was at a point where I thought I was going to lose my mind. I wanted to jump out of my skin with the V2K, and I was like, I'm gonna lose my mind. But then I got past that with like neuroplasticity, discipline, external stimuluses and things like that. And not to forget Dave Case's CD, grounding. This lump on my head, this big lump on my head. And there's more to come, because I'm going to get that electromagnetic transcranial stimulation device. I just have to get one of their doctors who work for them to actually give me a prescription for it. There might be some that you don't have to get a prescription for, but I think I found a really good one. And then I'm going to demonstrate it on a video and wait a while. I'm going to have to experiment with it for a little while to make sure my attackers aren't psyoping me, but I'm pretty sure that I can tell if it's working or not, by now, and how I've been attacked and used certain defenses. The Faraday bunker was just, if you're using passive defenses, be careful. And if you're making things, make sure that you're accounting for beneath you. Make sure you're accounting for beneath you. And I would say if you're using anything metal, like anything like from aluminum to copper or whatever, don't put it close to your body. If it's something that absorbs electromagnetic frequencies, do not put it. 5 feet is not enough. I'm talking like put it at least 7 feet away, or 8 feet, at least 7 or 8 feet away if you're going to use stuff like that. Or if you are using it on a body, put plastic or rubber or something like that. Just be careful with those things. If you got something that works for you, keep using it, but make sure that it's working for you. If something's getting worse and worse and it doesn't feel like that defense that you're using, it just feels like something else. Really question what's happening. All right. Okay, guys. That's all for today. I'm going to go through the rest of it later. And then I'm going to, more information to come when I find important information or somebody else is doing something that I think, needs to be promoted. I'll put that out. I know a lot of you out there, you're just hurting where you don't even think you're going to make it till tomorrow. I wish I could fix your situation. I think, we're all doing the best that we can. I guess the final thing I wanted to say in this video is, like, if you're in a situation where you can't think at all, like you can't think and you can't really do activism, and it's just like you're hurting too bad to really do anything, make your priority using and finding defenses that can get you up to a certain level where it's like, yeah, this is horrible, but I can bear it. And I know I've said that before. Your priority is, if you're at a certain point where you can't think and you're hurting so bad, your priority is then to find some defenses to get to a certain level where it's bearable. It may still be really, really shitty and really, really annoying and a struggle to get through the day, but you want it to be at a point where you're not like, oh man, I'm going to die tonight. I can't take another second of this, That needs to be a priority. Everybody's making monumental efforts to stop this, and the snowball is rolling, but you need to find defenses, and they're there. There are defenses. There's no textbook thing where it's like this are the only things that work. We can think outside the box, to block some of this stuff or change the way that our body's reacting to it. Okay. All right, that's all I got, guys. I love y'all, and on the next one I'll go ahead and finish it. Let's just keep on rolling. Keep on rolling, keep on putting information out, keep on fighting, keep on surviving, keep on helping each other. What do they say in Avengers Endgame? Whatever it takes. And Pepper moving my door. Alright, guys, I love y'all. I'll see y'all in the next one.